Hello, spooky friends. Today we will be discussing murder. Technically, I'm just gonna be showing you my favorite thrillers, actually, but murder sounded way more dramatic, so. Spooky friends and pumpkin pals, my name is Lexi and welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be quite the fun day as I will be showing you all of my favorite thrillers. I think I have 13 to share with you today. And also, if you are a little bit of a scaredy cat, never fear, you're actually in very, very good company because I too am a little bit of a scaredy cat. A lot of these thrillers have been books that have not scared me. They're just books that are intriguing, books that are fast paced. And so whether you're completely new to the genre and you're not sure if you're gonna like it, or if you are a person who loves devouring thrillers and you'd like some new recommendations, hopefully this will be the video for you. So I've gone ahead and I've actually put these thrillers into 3 different categories. We have got fast-paced thrillers, thrillers with a little bit of a paranormal element, and also thrillers that have some dark academia themes. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started with fast-paced thrillers. So the first fast-paced thriller that I have to recommend is an adult thriller, and it is The One by John Marrs. If you have not read this thriller, I absolutely could not recommend this more, and in fact, even if you don't like thrillers, highly recommend that you read this. It's just sort of unlike any other book I've ever read, and I adore it so much. So have you ever seen that Netflix show? I think it's called like Love is Blind or something like that, and it's basically where all of these couples are talking to each other and they're basically proposing to get married without actually seeing the other person. Okay, this book is kind of like that, except the people that they are getting matched with are actually supposed to be their genetic soulmate. And on top of that, some of their soulmates happen to be murdering killers. So it's a good time. It's a good time. So this particular book is following a very wide cast of characters, and actually this is a multiple perspectives narrative as well, which I always find very, very fascinating. And this book is set in our world, but our world, if somebody had discovered a gene that scientifically links you to another person. So in The One by John Marrs, a scientist has actually discovered a gene that technically corresponds to another person's gene, meaning scientifically in this world anyways, you really do have a genetic soulmate, a person where you bond with more than anybody else. However, there's a lot of repercussions because of this. So for example, this particular gene discovery has broken up a lot of marriages and a lot of really, really good relationships. We're following so many different perspectives, but one of the perspectives is actually between a serial killer and a cop who both get paired together. It's just really, really good. One of the most fast-paced books I've ever read. You'll read it probably within 24 hours because you just won't be able to put it down. Highly recommend. The next book I have here is a middle grade actually, and I think this is the only middle grade I have on this list. I highly recommend maybe picking this one up because it reads a little bit more like a cozy mystery. However, it definitely has the thriller aspect and super fast paced. Like I could not put this book down. And that is The Strangers by Margaret Peterson Haddix. This particular book is following 3 siblings, Emma, Chess, and Finn, who all live with their mother and have a very, very nice and comfortable life with her. But things drastically change one day when they see a news report about 3 children with their exact same birth dates, ages, and names, and they all go missing. That would be weird enough, except on top of that, now their mom is acting sketchy, and then eventually she just disappears. And so these 3 kids actually have to come together to try to figure out who their mother really is, who they are, and how they are related to these children on the television report. And the twists and turns in this book were so well done and so unexpected, but also this is a great book. I highly recommend this for anyone who is in a reading slump because the chapters are really, really short and every single chapter also ends on a cliffhanger, so you will fly through this book. Next up on this list is going to be Lock Every Door, and this is by Riley Sager. I'm pretty sure I read this thriller in just over 24 hours, so if you are looking for a book that you won't be able to put down, you might want to pick this one up. So in this book, we are following a girl named Jules Larson, and Jules is currently living in New York, and she is really, really down on her luck. She's looking for a job when she discovers an advertisement that sounds a little bit too good to be true, which honestly, Jules, should have been maybe your first clue. The job is essentially looking for a house sitter for this absolutely fabulous penthouse suite. All the person has to do, whoever gets this job, is just sleep in this penthouse suite for free, and they get paid an obscene amount of money. There are a couple of rules to this though. The first is that whoever sleeps in this penthouse suite can't actually talk to any of the other residents in the building. And the second is that they can never miss a night in this penthouse suite. Oh wait, and the third is that they can't have anybody sleep over with them. So no hanky-panky. However, when she gets there, another person who is also house sitting a penthouse suite goes missing. And when she asks some of the other residents about it, no one will talk to her. And now Jules is feeling a little bit freaked out because she's like, what happened to this girl? What's gonna happen to me? What's actually happening in this building? It's absolutely great. The plot twists in here are incredible. And I've read several of Riley Sager's books. In my personal opinion, this is his best work. So if you haven't picked this up, I highly, highly recommend it. Next up is a little bit of a staple in the thriller community. So if you are a person who has been around for a while and you love thrillers, you've probably already read or watched the movie version of this. But if you haven't, could not recommend this more. I just think that it is absolutely impeccable. And that is Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl. This book is so twisted. This book is so twisted. It is so wild, but I enjoyed every single second reading this. And fun fact, I didn't even know this was a thriller. I actually picked this up when I was in college because I saw the movie trailer and was like, oh, that looks interesting. And I read it and I was terrified. So this particular book is following Amy and Nick. They seem like the absolute perfect couple from the outside, and they are about to celebrate their anniversary when suddenly Amy goes missing. That seems pretty strange, but what seems even more strange is the fact that her diary entries have all been discovered, and Nick and Amy might not have had as perfect a relationship as they seem. It's so good. I don't think you'll see the twist coming unless you are familiar with the storyline, but even if you've seen the movie and you haven't read the book, I highly recommend the book. It's really, really worth the read. And then finally, the last book I have here for fast-paced thrillers is going to be Dark Matter, and this is by Blake Crouch. So the summary on the back of the book actually starts by asking, are you happy in your life? And to that, I'm gonna go ahead and say yes, because I am no longer in grad school. I cannot do another all-nighter. I just can't. But anyways, are you happy with your life? These are the last words that Jason Denson hears right before his mysterious kidnapper totally knocks him out. And when he wakes up, everything he knows has changed. So Jason is a professor, and he has a very, very lovely little life with his wife whom he loves and his son. However, when he wakes up, he doesn't have a wife. He doesn't have a son, and literally no one knows what he's talking about. He's actually this brilliant researcher, and he just wakes up on a gurney, by the way, and he has no idea what is going on. Apparently, he completely made up every single thing, and he actually doesn't have a wife or a kid. It's well worth the read, well worth the plot twists, and very fast-paced. And that is gonna be it for my fast-paced thrillers, so let's go ahead and move on to Paranormal Thrillers. Let's go ahead and start with one of my favorite books of all time, and that is Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan Mcguire. Okay, so you know Wendy Darling and Alice from Alice in Wonderland and Lucy who went to the Chronicles of Narnia, or I think it's actually just Narnia. This book is essentially asking what psychological damage happened when those people came back to our world, had to act like absolutely everything was fine and that didn't happen, and then went on with their life. I mean, it's pretty messed up if you think about it. It'd be weird. So this book is following Nancy, and Nancy goes to a school essentially where she is learning to adjust back to reality. So at this particular school, all of these other children have also gone off into other worlds, and then they have come back, and now all of the students have to adjust to reality in our world again. I feel like that's the premise that most people associate with this book and also with this little novella series by Seanan Mcguire. But what you might not know is that this also includes some murder. Because when Nancy shows up into this mysterious school, kids start to get killed. Highly, highly recommend picking this up. The murder mystery element was phenomenal, but also the concept surrounding this book is also just so unique and fascinating, and I loved every second in this world. Next up is a book that I read for Spookathon a couple of years ago. I can link that down below. I kind of miss Spookathon, I'm not gonna lie. And this book was absolutely terrifying to read. And that is Rules for Vanishing, and this is by Kate Alice Marshall, and this is a YA paranormal thriller. So do you remember those movies? They're like Saw movies where the guy was like, "Do you want to play a game?" Yeah, this book is basically like that, except the person asking that is a dead ghost and the game is some weird abandoned road in the middle of a forest. So, yeah. This book is following Sarah, and Sarah's sister Becca has just gone missing in their town. Sarah and Becca both live in a small town with kind of like an urban fantasy or an urban ghost story that says that there was a little girl named Lucy Gallows, and Lucy Gallows got lost on this mysterious, magical old road that only appears like once a year on a very specific night. It's probably Halloween. I mean, like, let's be real, that sounds right? And Sarah is convinced that Becca has somehow gotten lost on this magical road while looking for Lucy Gallows. The urban fantasy basically says that if you play this game, so if you show up and you follow this dirt road and you win the game, meaning like you don't get off the path, there's all these like bad things that are trying to get you off the path, like demons and monsters and ghosts that are trying to trick you and pull you off of the dirt path. Anyways, if you can survive all of that, you win the game. And I think the prize is finding dead Lucy Gallows, like the ghost, which I'm gonna be real, it does not sound like much of a prize to me. I would not be playing this game. But anyways, Sarah decides to show up one night with all of her friends, and they try to get on this dirt road and find her sister Becca. And things get very, very spooky. So if you are looking for like the perfect atmospheric, scary, spooky thriller, this is your girl, okay? Next up, we have a book that I am absolutely obsessed with. Like, the writing in this is superb. The world building in this is a whole other level. I love it so much, and that is Neverworld Wake, and this is by Marisha Pessl. This book is basically Groundhog Day, except instead of Bill Murray, the main characters are a bunch of pretentious teenagers, and every single one of them has a secret that they are desperately trying to hide. Also, there's no groundhog, so. This book is following Beatrice, and Beatrice has just lost her boyfriend who has tragically died that year. And after Jim's death, she and her friends have kind of become a little bit estranged, and they have all started to avoid each other. But on the last day of high school, Beatrice's friends contact her and say, hey, let's try to kind of like bury the hatchet and have one more night where we all kind of get together and have fun. And so they all decide to kind of get together by this seaside cliff mansion. I'm telling you, the aesthetics, the world, you're just gonna love it so much. And they decide to have kind of like a little bit of a party in this mansion, but just them, just the friend group. While they're at this mansion reminiscing about old times, there is a knock on the door and a stranger is blown in with a mysterious storm. He informs them that time has actually snagged and that these friends are stuck in a time loop and will be doomed to repeat the same day again and again and again until they can come to an impossible decision. Everything is just so good and so dark, and I loved it so much. It's very well done. It's one of my favorite books of all time, not just thrillers, but favorite books of all time, and I could not recommend this more. I think you should pick it up. And then finally, the last book rounding out this paranormal list is arguably the scariest book on the entirety of the list in general. Not just for like paranormal books, but I mean for all books. And also ironically, it's YA, which I feel like YA is supposed to be like less scary than adult books, but this was absolutely terrifying. And that is The Diviners by Libba Bray. Also, this is a very chunky book, but don't be intimidated by the size, because once you start, you will not be able to stop.
That's what she said. Michael.
This book is for people who enjoy true crime podcasts, who like the aesthetics of the 1920s, and also always wanted to have magical powers. It's a weird combination, I know, but if that's you, this is the book for you. This book is following Evie, and Evie has a very, very unique ability. She can see the future, but she sees it through objects. So she can actually touch an object, and when she touches the object, she can see any strong emotion and strong memory tied to the object. But her parents actually think that she is making everything up, and they decide to send her to live with her uncle in Manhattan. Not just because of this though, Evie's a little bit of a party girl, which we love to see. So she's kind of sent off to live with her uncle to shape up her life. Once she is there with her uncle, Evie discovers a magical object which might just lead to this very mysterious, murderous case in New York, and things get pretty spooky. The person who's doing all this does have magical spooky powers, and they are so scary. There's like a theme song that goes along with like some of the killings, and every time you hear that, oh, you don't like it. You don't like it. And then finally, we have the Dark Academia books. All right, so let's go ahead and start things off with Marisha Pessl's Special Topics in Calamity Physics. This book is following Blue, and Blue is a teenager who is following around her slightly eccentric father, who is a visiting professor. He's, I think, like a visiting lecturer, and he is usually invited to all of these different universities from around the country, but they're always kind of constantly moving, and so she doesn't really feel like she has a stable education. Having said that, Blue happens to be a genius. One day, her father and her are traveling in this little town, and Blue meets a girl named Hannah Schneider. Hannah Schneider is actually a teacher at this very prestigious and elite boarding school, I think, and Hannah Schneider convinces Blue to check out the school. Blue becomes fascinated with Hannah Schneider, and she is drawn into Hannah's little world. There are all of these little students who are huge fans of Hannah Schneider, and once Blue kind of is invited into their group, Hannah then is murdered. There are so many layers to this story. There are so many plot twists to this story. The ending was so worth it. Next up is a new favorite thriller of all time, and that is going to be For Your Own Good, and this is by Samantha Downing. So in this book, we are following Teddy Crutcher, who is a professor or a teacher at this very prestigious and elite boarding school called the Belmont Academy. And Teddy has some very unconventional methods for teaching his students, but he really does care about his students. And this book is following the year that some of his more unconventional methods for teaching his students has some pretty serious and possibly dire consequences. You see what I did there? Dire, murder, consequences. Okay. Pick this book up if you are looking for an untraditional thriller that is absolutely impossible to put down. The next book I have is a book that I have put on virtually every single book recommendations list ever since I finished reading it last year. And I will not apologize because it's so good. And that is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This book is following Oliver, and Oliver has just been released from jail from being wrongly accused of a murder that he did not commit. And he is recounting all of the events of what really happened all those years ago at his university. I think that you will love, absolutely love Oliver and all of his little friends, except for one person. I don't like that one person, but I won't say anything else. They are all studying Shakespeare and theater arts at this very prestigious university. And this particular book is following the year that possibly Oliver and his friends got a little bit too into the Shakespearean roles. They took it a little too far, you know what I'm saying? So people died. I also would recommend that you actually check this out on audio. The audiobook actually will act out some of the Shakespeare plays as well. It's just really good. It's a good time, okay? And then finally, the last book I have here is going to be The Maidens, and this is by Alex Michaelides, or Michaelides, or Michaelides. This is by Alex. This is another book that I recommend if you are a person who loves very twisted endings, if you are a person who loves really great shocks and plot twists in books. This is gonna be your new favorite. I just loved this so very much. This book is following Mariana, and Mariana has a niece named Zoe who is currently enrolled at Cambridge University. And Zoe calls Mariana in an absolute panic, saying that her best friend has just been murdered. And so Mariana goes to make sure that Zoe is okay, and also to kind of check out what Zoe is talking about. Once she is there, Zoe says that she is convinced it is a professor named Edward Fosca, who seems to have a cult-like following of other students. Mariana checks out Edward Fosca and realizes he is a pretty sketchy guy. He has a literal group of students following him around, and they call themselves the Maidens. Yeah, it's weird. And so Mariana is trying to figure out if Edward Fosca really did murder Zoe's best friend, and if he did it, how did he do it? It is very fast-paced, it is very twisted, and I thoroughly enjoy this one. And there you go, that is it everyone. Those are all of the thrillers that I recommend for spooky season, but also all year round. And please let me know down below in the comments if you have a favorite thriller you think that I should check out. I will warn you though, I actually can't do like gruesome-y things. So if you're going to recommend me a thriller, maybe something that just has like lots of great twists, but maybe not something with like a lot of brutal, in-depth, descriptive killing. But anyways, I would love to know all of your thriller recommendations down below. And if you would like to leave something but you don't know what to leave, you can always leave me the knife emoji. Oh God, that's brutal. I think that's it for now though, you guys. So until next time, keep your head in the clouds and your heart in a book. And I will talk to you very soon. Stay spooky. Boo.